We Cyclopes never blink at Zeus and Zeus's shield of storm or thunder, or any other blessed god. We've got more force by far.
Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well. I've got another Greek mythology video for you all today, this time about the Cyclopes, that's how I'm going to pronounce it, of Greek mythology. We'll go through their origins, members, notable stories, and what happened to them, both elder and younger Cyclopes both. Related articles and sources are in the description. My friends, thank you all for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Sometimes they are hairy monsters, other times they are deft-handed Titan blacksmiths, with a singular eye in the center of their foreheads as their name indicates. And oftentimes they are larger than humans, depending on the interpretation, at least most interpretations, and they have great renown and infamy within and outside of Greek mythology. The original Cyclopes were the three sons of Uranus and Gaia, making them brothers of Kronos and the other Titans. They were Brontes, Thunderer, Steropes, Lightning, and Arges, Vivid Flash, and they were rather different than the Cyclopes that came later, the more brutish and less intelligent ones such as Polyphemus from the Odyssey. No, these were actually master blacksmiths, much more like the Titans than the monsters of later days, and they were mistreated by their father as most sons of Uranus were. And yet they themselves were mighty. Uranus had a reason to fear them, as did Kronos. For after Kronos overthrew his father, he would imprison his own brothers in Tartarus, and set the dragoness named Campi to guard them. As Kronos reigned as the tyrant of the pantheon, and Zeus was born to Rhea and hidden away, that he might overthrow his father, he would, at the advice of Gaia, his grandmother, find his way down to Tartarus and slay Campi in order to free his uncles, the elder Cyclopes, and the other Gargantuans, the 100-handed giants. For their freedom and in their gratitude, the three Cyclopes would forge Poseidon's trident, the helm of invisibility for Hades, and of course, Zeus's lightning bolt, which would establish Zeus as the strongest god in the pantheon forevermore. Now, pertaining to their fate, it is said that Apollo had a son, Asclepius, who grew so great as a physician and as the god of medicine that he might have even cured death or brought people back from the dead. And Zeus was forced to slay him as to not upset the natural order of the cosmos. Obviously, Apollo was not happy about this, and in his pain and grief, he would slay the three Uranian Cyclopes, or their sons, as this is added by later myth. Since he couldn't kill Zeus directly, he would kill those that made his thunderbolt. It could also be that Zeus slew the three of them as well, after they did all they did to help him, to ensure that they could not replicate the power they crafted for him in his lightning bolt for anyone else. Zeus was a jealous god. Or it may simply be that they continued to dwell in the Forge of Olympus, perhaps alongside Hephaestus, or elsewhere underground in the world. Now let's transition to talking about the Homeric Cyclopes. These were, at least in personality, a far cry from the blacksmith Titanic Cyclopes, though it is strange that they shared their form and most identifying characteristic, the singular eye, if they weren't related. In Homer's Odyssey, the Cyclops named Polyphemus, the son of Poseidon, was a monstrous creature living in a cave, surviving on milk, cheese, and meat, hence the shepherd part of their story. He lived amongst other Cyclopes as well, but was noted as the one to have had such a run-in with Odysseus, the chief hero of the story. It seems that, at least in later adaptations of the tales, such as Euripides or Virgil, there was more commentary on the possible origins of these Cyclopes, either being the sons of Poseidon or kin to the original Cyclopes. In this regard, if I were to offer some commentary here as well, there would have to be some relation between the Cyclopes of later days and the ones from before. Perhaps the three sons of Uranus, one of them had a daughter that Poseidon may have mated with, thus creating a new clan of demigod-like monsters that are also the sons of Poseidon and descended from the original three elder Cyclopes. But again, either way, Polyphemus, who later depictions place on Sicily, was one of the most savage of the Cyclopes that we know of in particular. According to the Odyssey, on their way back to Ithaca after the Trojan War, the crew of Odysseus stops on an island where there are goats, caves, and no civilization. This is great for hungry sailors on their way home. They enter into a cave of the shepherd where there is cheese and milk and goats. Yet, they are trapped when Polyphemus closes the cave entrance with a great stone. Though Odysseus tries to explain their plight, two of his men are snatched up by Polyphemus and eaten, crushed, and devoured in horrific detail. They are trapped there in that place, as Polyphemus sought to devour them all, 2 men a day, and the men are stuck, as they had not the strength to push forth the rock from the cave entrance themselves. Yet Odysseus was a cunning man, and made himself a guest of Polyphemus, giving the Cyclops wine from his ship, even as 2 more men were devoured. He and Polyphemus spoke, and he introduced himself as Nobody in name. He ensured that the Cyclops became drunk, and, after Polyphemus fell asleep, and had promised to eat Nobody last as a reward for the gift of wine, he puked in his sleep, but was quite unconscious. Odysseus and his men took part of the Cyclops' club that they had broken off, and ensured that it grew hot in the flames and cinders that were alight in the cave, before shoving it effectively in the eye of Polyphemus. Of course, this awoke the monster, who called for his kin, yet when they arrived, he claimed that nobody was hurting him. The others called back that Polyphemus was simply being attacked from a plight by Zeus, and should pray to Poseidon. Though I do find it worth mentioning that beforehand, in his pride, this Cyclops claimed that the Cyclopes needed not the gods and were greater than they were. Well, Polyphemus would open his cave, for though he no longer had an eye, he was hoping to grasp men that were attempting to run out in the darkness, but they were patient, and, at the command of Odysseus, they would each go beneath 1 goat between 2 others, allowing them to escape with Polyphemus's animals in the morning. As the men were back at sea, Odysseus called back and taunted him, and the Cyclops threw a great rock, pushing the men back towards the shore as the waves hit their boat back. Though they tried to calm their captain as they saw this to be needless, Odysseus continued, and Odysseus gave his real name, the one who burned out the eye of Polyphemus, and the Cyclops called back that it had been a prophecy that Odysseus would do such a thing, but he did not expect one so small. And then he would go on to pray to Poseidon to curse Odysseus, hoping that the man would never make it back home, but if he did, that it would be after a great deal of time and problems after his mates had all been killed, and that he would find misfortune in his home. Poseidon would hear this and antagonize Odysseus in such a way during his journey, but Odysseus had other gods and his own skills to call upon as well, and would eventually make it home. As for the other Cyclopes, it could be that by the leadership of Perseus, that man had brought some back with him to build the walls of Mycenae, or Protus did the same thing for the walls of Tiryns. But this could also just be some mythological embroidery, rather than a story and lore in and of itself to add to the world building of these locations. After this, we know very little other than the reinterpretations of the Cyclopes through retellings of these tales or the creation of new ones, making them appear perhaps more sympathetic or less depending on the material. Such as Polyphemus perhaps being in love with one of the sea nymphs named Galatea. Based on this lore, though, we can imagine that there would continue to be islands, perhaps, full of evil Cyclopes monsters, just waiting to devour wayward adventurers. From this tale, we see that courage and wit can undermine raw strength or brutality, or increase it, depending on which tale of the Cyclopes we look at. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lore on the Cyclopes of Greek mythology. If you did, please hit that like button, share this with a friend, and let me know what else you would like to see us cover in this format or in others as we continue to cover different mythologies. Join us by subscribing, and my friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure and for listening in. Until the next one.